Hi, everybody. I have a really special guest with me today. Her name is Melissa Waterman, and I'll give you a little backstory about what I'm doing here with her. Many of you know that I have a great affinity for focused life force energy, which is the FLFE technology. Clayton and Jeff, who you've met in a couple of my interviews before, many of you have already tried FLFE or are actually on FLFE. And I think the one question that keeps coming up for you and me and everybody else is, how can we prove it's working? You can't see anything. And of course, that's part of a discerning mind. We do want to see. And Jeff and Clayton had to look at this and say, how do we demonstrate it? We know it's working from our end, but how do we demonstrate this to other people? So they engaged the services of Melissa, who has a very sophisticated technology that was developed by one of my very favorite scientists in the world, Konstantin Korotkov, whom I have interviewed before, amazing Russian scientist. And he developed this technology that can read subtle fields. Melissa works with this technology. And so they engaged Melissa. Please see if FLFE, if you could demonstrate visually what FLFE is actually doing on this technology via a chart that it reads out as it's reading energy. So yes, that has all been done. Melissa's here with us today, and we want to talk about how this works and how it's used otherwise, and a little bit about the technology itself. Hi, Melissa. It's great to have you on.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for your interest. I love getting to talk about the technology and the findings. It's my passion.
I know it is, and I have been trying to get together with Konstantin for a follow-up interview for a long time, but actually Konstantin has moved on to another technology in partnership. I know who he's in partnership with because it has to do with Gaia, and Gaia wanted to work with Konstantin to try to make kind of a cheaper version of the technology for everyday use in the home, really easy for people, but it's no substitute for the original technology that Konstantin really spent his lifetime developing.
Absolutely. Well, it is a very interesting story. I got the wonderful opportunity to meet Dr. Korotkov in Arizona in 2012. And basically, he was at a Dr. Joe Dispenza event measuring the energy of people's personal energy with the GDV camera. And the GDV stands for Gas Discharge Visualization. And he had a prototype of his biowell that he is promoting throughout the world and having great success with. But it was just coming to the market. It was just, I don't even think I don't think the first, like he had his first baby, but there wasn't a whole bunch to buy yet. And I got excited after I met Dr. Korotkov, and I said, I think I want a camera. Like, how expensive could it be? And I'll just create my own reality, and let's get a camera. And so I contacted him, and he referred me to KTI International, Kirlian Technologies International, which is a company that he's a major shareholder in, that had developed some of the GDV. There's many different GDV cameras, and the biowell's one of them. There's a whole line of different grades of cameras. And so I had the wonderful opportunity to meditate about it. I was using some of Dr. Joe Dispenza's techniques, and I was creating my own reality and using meditation to bring a camera into my world. I have to tell you, I wasn't doing it daily. I wasn't like, oh, I gotta have a camera. It just was like, oh, it would be so fun. It would be great to have a camera. It would be fun to play with. And I had this one meditation, and it was very dreamlike, where I saw some very good friends of mine that are healers, and we were all in a room together, and I was using the GDV camera, and I was doing before and after images on the people that they were using their energy methods on. And so I was all excited. And so, as you would if you had a dream, I went to them the next day, and I was like, oh my gosh, or I think it was later the same day, I had this great meditation, and you were in it. And they're big users of kinesiology, and they were testing, and they were like, we're supposed to buy this camera. And I was like, really? I thought I was supposed to buy it. We don't need two in a very small geographical area, right? They're very expensive. This camera was very expensive. Anyway, it turned out that they ended up purchasing the camera and have allowed me to use it. And I've been, purchasing it back from them, so to speak, over time. But I've been using it since, I think it was September of 2013. Is that right? Might have been, yeah, I think it was actually 2013. It was February of 2013 where I met Dr. Korotkov, and just in less than a year, I had my own camera to use as I saw fit, and I got lots of training, went on many trainings, and mentioned to Dr. Dispenza, like, I would be happy to bring this camera to help Dr. Korotkov if he's coming to an event. I could be his assistant, or just we could both be taking. We could do twice as many people.
What a privilege to work directly with him.
Yeah, it was a great treat. And so I ended up, he was like, well, no, I don't think we're going to keep doing that testing. And I was like, okay, but just know I have a camera. I purchased it for fun, right? Like I was involved for the fun of it. And I think it was January of 2014 then, where he said, hey, Dr. Korotkov he can't get a visa. So would you do the GDV testing? And I worked with Dr. Dispenza for 5 years and did over 19 events. I did 19 events, not over 19, where I read the images of many, many people. And I also took the readings of the energy in the room of his events. Sometimes his events would have 200 people, and sometimes they would have 1,500 people. And so I got lots of wonderful experience with this amazing camera, both taking images of humans and taking images of the energy in a room.
So let me ask you, how did Jeff and Clayton know about you to begin with? How did that relationship develop?
Yeah, I think that was another synchronistic moment where I believe one of the people that had signed up for Focus Life Force Energy was speaking with one of his staff members and was talking about energy in a room being, at a Dr. Joe event, having the energy in a room measured. And the woman who worked for FLFE said, yeah, let's see if we can get this woman to measure our energy. And so over time, we started a discussion, and they did some kinesiology, and I did some kinesiology, and it turned out that it was really a good fit for us both to work together.
It's interesting because I know a little bit about what they do, and Clayton is the calibrator, and he's always behind the scenes calibrating everything to see its level of consciousness, whether it's right, wrong, whether it's going to be a good relationship, not a good relationship. But this is the thing that had perplexed them, was all these people clamoring, how do I know that it's working?
Right.
Physical proof. So this is really good that it turned out that way, because I know they were looking for that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And so it turned out to be a beautiful endeavor.
So let's go ahead and talk about, do you work with, I assume you work with clients, and you already talked about what happened with Joe Dispenza, whom most of the people that are watching this are familiar with. We all love Dr. Joe. And how else do you use it before we start launching into what you actually discovered when you started measuring FLFE?
Well, I have worked, I worked with others on a study with Dr. Jeffrey Fannin on a study for access bars. Mm-hmm. I've worked with several local people. I've measured energy in rooms of meditators locally, yoga studios. Oh my gosh, just about anybody who asks me to, I'll measure it. I've measured, I've done in my own practice, I'll do energy clearings of buildings. And so I'll pretty much on my own say, hey, do you mind if I take a baseline reading of your energy before I do the clearing, and then again after, just so I can see what I'm doing, whether I'm having an effect with, my bells and wings and whistles and so forth.
Right.
So, I use the GDV camera predominantly on individuals. I have a psychotherapy practice, and I use the GDV with every new client, and we just take, a reading on fingers of human energy, of the human biofield. We do that, pretty religiously to make sure that we're moving in the right direction, that we're seeing the changes in the energy field that we want. Because the camera has the ability to take an emotional reading, and so I can see if someone's making emotional changes and how that's impacting their physical. So, That's predominantly what I do. But I love to travel. I've traveled. If people want me to come to their area and do a group of friends, that's like my heart's desire, to just travel all over the place. And
good. Well, check. Noted. Anybody listening, if you want her to come, Melissa's available.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the actual readings that you did with FLFE and what these graphs look like, how they show themselves, and we can kind of cut right to that part of it because that's what people are going to want to know about now.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll talk a little tiny bit more about the Kirlian camera and just how it works. All right, so some of these images are of Kirlian photography in general. And just to give someone an idea, most people have seen these images. They're just the life force energy. And so the GDV camera, the gas discharge visualization, is a type of Kirlian or Kirlian camera. And these are the kind of images of inanimate objects. These are the kind of images we get. And then, you know, here we have some rocks. So it just sort of shows the life force energy, even in things. I mean, this is a sunflower, this one to the far left. But these are rocks. We wouldn't normally think of them as having life force energy. Of course, we know there are energetics involved. This is an image. So
it looks like they're really throwing off a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
Especially the crystal. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. But even an ammonite, that's a fossil. You know, you wouldn't expect it to have quite that much energy coming off. So it's very interesting. It gave me an entirely new perspective on what's alive and what isn't, and what is influencing me and what isn't. And it gave validity to the idea of wearing a piece of sacred geometry, and that having a frequency that would then impact my system. Because of course, if a rock can do it, then a symbol that others have said are sacred. So this is what the GDV camera looks like. This is what my GDV camera looks like. It's the GDV Pro. It's a rather large. There's no size perspective here, but it's probably about 15 inches long and about 6 inches wide. Mm-hmm. And the way this works is that there is literally, you're putting your finger, it's not that electricity is really coming. This is just the best image I could come up with. You're putting your finger on the glass, or I'm putting a test object on the glass, and I'll show you an image of that in a minute. And under the glass, there is a millivolt, 10 millivolts, 10 microseconds of 10 millivolts being administered to the bottom of the glass at the same time. Either a test object or a finger or an item is on the glass. And that millivolt of electricity is what makes this excited state that creates a photon cloud.
Yeah, so subtle. That's such a tiny amount of voltage. Very, very subtle, yet
that's right.
Profound.
And so what Dr. Korotkov, Kirlian cameras have been around since the 1880s. What Dr. Korotkov did was he digitalized it. So he made, you know, like most of the people I know that were using Kirlian photography since the 80s, they had their own dark rooms in their houses, right? And so he's just saved them so much work. So this is a very interesting picture because it shows, you know, Sputnik looks so huge. Sputnik in actuality is about 4 inches tall. It's very small, but all those spikes, it's an antenna. It's the antenna that I actually connect to that camera you saw a minute ago. Mm-hmm. And it's what gathers the information from the environment. So that when I take an image, it looks like this. This is actually one of the images from the Focus Life Force Energy test. And so I'm going to talk about the different kinds of energy that are here. Different things are measured with each of the different parameters that we use. And so this is perfectly round because a test object that's made of titanium was put on the glass. And then the glass was excited with that small amount of energy. And this is the glow or the corona of energy that showed up. And that, I think with this test I took, I can't remember now, I think it was every 3 seconds. over a 12-hour period of time. Is it 3 seconds? I ended up with about 2,500 images that I had to evaluate. So it was a very lengthy test to make sure we were getting really accurate information.
Mm-hmm. And is this a composite? Was that a composite of those over 2,000 images over a 24-hour period?
No, that's one. That's one of those.
It's representative of the norm.
Right. And so the next one might have had a few less bits of orange, or a little bit more orange, or a little, these little ups and downs are what would have changed between each picture.
Okay.
And so then here we have, the entropy. That's the first thing I measure. So the red line is the baseline. I took it for 12 hours, and then I asked Jeff and Clayton to turn on FLFE to my house. And my house is where I did this test. I thought it would be an environment that was similar to other people's homes that would be using the focused life force energy. And so I took into account in this study things like electricity, microwave, the heat coming on and off. It was early in November, so there wasn't a whole bunch of heat coming on and off, but there were influences in the daytime that I made sure to write down. And as I take these tests, so each one of these dots is actually the capture, and one at a time. So 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, or 3 seconds. I can't remember which interval it was. It was very, very frequently it was going off. And then I could look back and go, oh, well, what happened at this time? At say 65 captures in, did something interesting happen in the environment that I'm aware of? Did a truck drive by? Did a lightning clap? Did the heat come on? Did something happen that would make this spike, right? And so these were taken literally at the same time of day, 2 days apart. One was a Thursday and one was a Friday, from my recollection. And you can see that this is chaotic, right? So entropy, by its meaning, is chaos. It's the ability for things to go from organization to disorganization. It's chaos. And so my house on a regular day, this is 600. You can see there's 601 captures. That's the number across the bottom.
Okay.
And in those 600 captures, there was many times that the energy was going up and down and up and down and up and down. And I can't tell you, there was nothing during this 600 capture piece that I took for this image. There was nothing special happening. There was no heat going on and off. It's 600 images is a relatively short period of time, maybe a half an hour. And I couldn't attest to why the energy looks like this.
Can I ask you a quick question here? What about, now some people will probably be looking at this if they're thinking the question I am too, which is, what about things like smart meters and that kind of interference?
Sure. That's exactly the kind of things that would be going on and off and moving and grooving and all kinds of, this shows that there are things going on that we can't see in our home. EMFs, the computer, the television, the dryers. I mean, I don't know how many screens you have in your house, but I have quite a few of them. Like if several people are home and they're all on at the same time, how many Wi-Fi router things are there in the house? All of these things are the kind of things that are creating this entropy, this sort of baseline. This red is the baseline of the house. This is just, it's not particularly startling to me. I've seen baselines that are far more extreme, that have numbers that go up to 4. This is 1, 2, 3. And so this is, but it's still very jagged. And then we have focused life force energy is turned on, and look what happens to the line.
Yeah.
Same time of day.
It's knocking off the spikes.
It's knocking off the spikes wildly. And so what it did was it took the chaos and brought it down. It took what is baseline noise, so to speak, in the energy world, just a kind of a staticky noise, and it made it less and more solid.
So essentially it took chaos and turned it into something that was a more coherent baseline frequency, right?
Well, coherent is a word that I use with some of the other things. Entropy is always chaos. Mm-hmm. It's just that we had a lot of chaos and now we have less chaos.
Less chaos, okay.
And so here's another way of looking at it, right? Like, so bars and whiskers, that's the name of this kind of diagram. Bars show how much energy is sort of in the middle of the range. And then the whiskers are the outliers. Here are the outliers. So if we go back to the other image, so, you know, most of the dots are in here, and then there are these outliers. But they're far away from all the, I can't remove the blue to show it to you, but
right, we can see the saturation under there.
Yeah, there's a lot of red that's sort of going in this line. Mm-hmm. And so this is still a lot. This is an extreme. We want energy to look like this.
Right.
So, you know, not only did the entropy reduce, it came to a lower amount, it also the bars and whiskers. So it did get more coherent, but it's just not, it's still entropy. So I don't want to confuse people.
You know,
it's still, yeah, it's still the chaotic. We're still looking at the chaos. Whereas, you know, this next one is, so just so you know, when you measure entropy, it's really looking at all the orange and the pink. It's looking at this outer, and it's somehow calculating the orange that's on the inside. It's taking all of the chaos, all these big jaggeds, and it's measuring them. And then the next thing we're measuring is area. And area is really the strength. And so it's taking everything. It's counting every pixel, and it's looking at the overall area of this capture and all of the captures. And so here we saw that the baseline didn't have a whole lot of energy, very low, and it got higher in energy. It got stronger and deeper. And so this is very interesting. When you remove entropy and increase energy, then you know you're cooking with fire, right? If you remove entropy and decrease area, you've flattened the energy. You've taken something away, but you haven't enhanced it in any way. So this, you know, this really shows that the area has improved, that the overall content has gotten stronger and has more vitality than the baseline. So then the next thing that is measured, which I think is the most important, is the intensity of the energy.
Okay.
And the intensity measures this blue part, this very most vibrant blue part. And so here you can see that also. Mm-hmm. So not only did the whole image improve, but the most important part of the image improved. So we have two tests that really show that the quality of the energy has become much healthier. It's not just that we removed, did you like how I put myself in there? It's not just that focused life force energy took out the chaos, which would still be wonderful. That would be a wonderful thing to be able to say, well, this is what, focused life force energy does. It removes the chaos. But it didn't just remove it. It also enhanced the energy pretty spectacularly. And so that's just my contact information. So now we can
catch it. You can always stop the screen right here. Anybody, if you want to contact Melissa, there's her contact info. Okay. Yeah. There we go. Melissa.
Great. So now I've stopped the share.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really, let me just put us up here together. I really appreciate the fact that you were able to take the time to do that, you guys came together in this collaboration to show this to us, because you can feel it, but that's not enough, especially for people. Some people aren't sensitive in terms of feeling energy.
Yeah.
And think, I can't really feel it, so I can't imagine why I would bother, but maybe their cat or their dog or their kids or their husband or wife is feeling it. So this is really interesting in that it's taken that part of sort of faith out of the equation. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yep. I agree. I think that's, I mean, often a person can walk into a room and feel when the energy doesn't feel right, but when the energy does feel right, people have trouble feeling it. We
Yeah,
just take that for
that
granted.
is true. That is
Yeah.
true. So, you know, I really appreciate the fact that you were doing this to begin with. I appreciate the fact that Konstantin developed it. I interviewed him on this about probably 7 years ago now.
Mhm.
And also maybe 8 years ago. It's been quite when I had Conscious Media Network. And I really appreciate the fact that, as I said before, you guys came together because it's something that I feel so good about. And I you know, and when people say, well, how do you know? I say, well, you don't. You just kind of have to feel it. So you really helped all of us a lot on that.
I'm so happy to be a part of it, really.
Yeah. Any other thoughts you want to share with us before we sign off here today? Because I think this has been fascinating.
No, I think I've covered it all. I just am thrilled to death that I could be a part of the whole Focus Life Force Energy, and that you are interested to get more information and to understand it, and to have an opportunity to really help people see, because they see graphs and they think, well, what am I looking at? And so it's always nice to be able to give it a little depth. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
It is, and the reality is life is jagged right now. It's just jagged, and we're all, I think all of us are just kind of crushed by the notion that 5G is approaching pretty soon, and we already have all these jaggedy energies. But I know they're going to get around to working with 5G. I'll be very curious to see what your readings show once Fluffy's applied to 5G in the areas where it's saturated. But for the moment, at least we're seeing what it's doing with all the existing EMFs and so forth. So that's, I personally, I find it a little comforting because I have Fluffy on my house. So of course I have Fluffy.
Yeah. Yep. It's good stuff.
It is good stuff. Okay, well, thank you so much again, Melissa. I appreciate your time and putting a presentation together for us.
My pleasure.
Okay, everybody, you can find Melissa Waterman at the information that was just found a little bit back on the screen. In fact, we'll throw it up for you again in just a moment here. So until next time, thank you for joining us here on reginameredith.com. Thank you for watching this video. You can find many more like it free of charge by going to reginameredith.com. And if you're finding that this kind of content is adding value to your life, you might want to support my work by clicking on the Patreon button on the website, reginameredith.com. As a patron, you have special videos, insider commentary, and much more. Check it out.